So I have to ask you, Natalie, have you ever shopped for a car and been told you cannot have the car you want, or we have no idea when it's going to be in, or oh yeah, well we're never getting that color, or are you out of your mind? Like just the salespeople try to talk you into something that you don't really want because they don't have what you want. Does that ever happen to you?
Oh yeah, Scotty, definitely. Like 2 years ago when I really needed a car and I came in there and I'm like, that's not what I want.
Yeah.
Not
They
fun.
try to convince you that, oh, you don't need an SUV. Why does everybody want an
Hmm.
SUV? Be an individual. And,
Right.
these things. And I'm like, I ruined my back installing child car seats and then children into the back of a
Yep.
sedan. Literally, the chiropractor told me to go buy an SUV. He said,
Mm.
you're gonna really hurt yourself. And so the car salesman was wrong. He was wrong. And come to find out, one of the reasons that car salespeople can be so unwavering in what they think you need versus what you think you need
Hmm.
is because they have to sell what they have. They can't always sell what you want. Is that a
Mm.
shock?
That's pretty sad. So you can't get what you want? No, thank you.
Okay, so here, like, just to use an example, Toyota is producing millions of cars every year in all the different colors, all the different trims of all the different models. Somewhere in there must be the right car for me, right?
Right.
And it turns out it might be in there, but can they find it and get it for
Mm.
you? Not always, which also was sort of a crazy factoid I learned this week. And I learned a lot of this from talking with some buyers who were frustrated because they were not able to order the cars they wanted. And there's this myth out there. There are people who say you cannot order the car you want. Their car makers are not allowed to order the car you want, or
Mm.
the car makers will not sell you a specific car. They just build them and you got to find it. That's not true. That is a myth. And then there's other people, especially on the car maker side, who say, oh, no, no, no. If a customer wants a car, they can order it. And while that's technically true, it's not always practically true. It's not
Mm.
always actually true. So I spent some time with our friend LeeAnn Shattuck, and we had such a great conversation that we decided to take the conversation not to one podcast, but two. So we have this podcast today, and then down below, you'll find a link to LeeAnn's podcast and her podcast that finishes the conversation on how you find the car you want, how you get a dealer to sell you the car you want. Will be this part two of that conversation will be on her podcast next week. So today here, next week on LeeAnn's podcast. And I am so excited to share this conversation with you because it is eye-opening. There are all these things. Allocation, something that, I mean, I've always heard it. And you go,
Mhm.
allocation, okay, I get what that means, right? I'm
Right.
allocated this amount of this number of this model and this number of that model. Oh, it's not that easy. It's not that they're just allocated. It is that they have to earn their allocation, and that allocation is limited, and they don't know what their allocation is until it's allocated to them. So they have no idea what they're going to get. So they may or may not get that car that you want. You would think, you go to Nordstrom and you want to buy this jacket, they don't have your size, so they order it for you and ship it to you, right?
Hmm.
Car dealers can't necessarily do that. And we always think that they don't want to do it. It's not that they don't want to do it, it's that often they just can't do it. And so, how do you get that car you want? So, we answer all these questions between this podcast and next week's podcast. And with that, we ready to roll,
All
Natalie?
right. Let's go. Let's check it out.
Hi, LeeAnn.
Hey, Scotty, how are you?
I am so good, and I am so happy to see you. It's been way too long, but it's good to see you IRL here on What Drives Her. Thanks for joining us today.
You are very welcome. I'm honored to be here. And this is going to be fun. This is the first time we've done a two-part kind of crossover episode, the way the Law and Order TV shows did. So,
Yeah, so So just to fill everybody in, so we're recording this podcast today, but we're also going to record part 2, where many of my questions for LeeAnn will be answered over on her podcast. And so there'll be a link right below. There is a link right below. You can find her podcast for additional answers. And by the way, subscribe to both, because there's so much good information on LeeAnn's podcast. A very different take than what we do. She's more about the cars and getting the right car, getting the right deal, and not overpaying, and understanding the system and making the system work for you. We're always focused on women in this industry. LeeAnn is an incredible leader in our industry, and women who are changing the automotive industry to be more inclusive and more in our own image, as it should be.
It should be.
So tell us, before we get started, LeeAnn, tell us how you got started in the auto business and how you became the car chick.
Absolutely. Well, I've loved cars my entire life and started, learning high performance driving when I was, I think, maybe 7 years old. So cars have just always been my passion. And I got burnt out working, in IT in corporate America, and just looked at how many smart, successful, dynamic women still felt like they needed to bring a man with them to buy a car because they didn't like the way they were treated by the dealers, and they just weren't comfortable with the process. And so I'm like, wait, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I looked at the real estate buyer's model. And so I'm like, car is the second largest purchase most people make in their lives. Why do you not have someone who can be on your side and help you through the process and get you the best deal and figure out what the right car is? And so, I kind of inadvertently became the car chick. That was accidental branding. But, now I own a car buying service for women and smart men, so that we can figure out what the perfect car is for you based on your lifestyle, budget, and personality, and then get you the best deal so that all you have to do is sign the papers and take the keys. It's designed to make it easy and be a win-win with the dealers as well.
And so a little bit of a promo here. And by the way, this is not LeeAnn's first time on our podcast. If you dig down into our early episodes, you will find a What Drives Her episode with LeeAnn. But just as a little promo, what's the average difference in MSRP that someone might pay if they were just to walk into a dealership and buy a car versus what they would pay for a car working with you?
A lot of that depends on what the markup on the car is and what the incentives are. And I'll tell you what my clients have told me is that the value of the service is in helping them figure out the right car in the first place. Because it's not you may save $6,000 on the car, but if it's not the right car for you, or if that car is not of good quality and you end up spending more later, then it's not a good deal. So it's about, saving you the time and being able to navigate just the craziness that is the car market today. And that the money that I save them is icing on the cake. Sometimes we do have to pay MSRP because it's the hottest thing, but I might be able to get it for you, within a couple of weeks, whereas everybody else might be waiting 6 months, or I've saved clients as much as $16,000 on a car. So it just really depends, but it's just knowing how to navigate the market and how the game is played.
And so that is such a nice segue to our conversation today, talking about how to get a car that you want from a dealer. And that sounds like such a simple thing. Like, oh, I know what I want. I'll go over to the dealership. They'll have it there. I'll sign on the dotted line. I'll drive it away. For so many people, it doesn't work that way because they want what they want. And I get it. When it comes to my kitchen, when it comes to my home, when it comes to my wardrobe, when it comes to, all these very personal things, it's not one size fits all. I need the thing that fits me. I need the thing that is right for me. It fits my aesthetics. It fits my personal style. It makes me happy. It fits my family and my dog. Even though it would be ideal for me to drive a Toyota Prius, that does not fit my lifestyle at all. So it's not everything is right for everyone. So we had a woman who messaged us about a year ago and said she was really struggling with a new car purchase because she decided what she wanted. She read all the reviews. And she went to her dealer and she put down a deposit, and she called every month or so, and they said, oh yeah, it's not here yet, or oh, we got a truck in, but it wasn't on there. And then she came to find out that she actually was on a wait list. They hadn't told her that. Several had come in, but there still were a number of customers ahead of her. The dealership blamed supply chain issues and chip shortages, which may or may not have been true. Most of that was sort of in the rearview mirror at that point, and but it could have been, I don't know. But then she said, well, can I just order it and just wait however long it takes for it to be built? And the dealer said no. Right. Is that what happens? Is that true? Does that really happen, LeeAnn?
It can, and it depends on the brand of car that you're looking at. Some manufacturers allow you to place a true order. You go on the website, you build the car out exactly the way you want it in their little build tool, and then you send it to the dealer, and then the dealer can actually go into the manufacturer system and place that order. And then as soon as the order is accepted, you get a timeline, you get an estimated production date, and that's great. But not every manufacturer works that way. And some of them will pretend that they do, but they actually don't. And that sounds like what happened to this lady. So let me guess, she was trying to get a Toyota?
She was trying to get a Toyota. Yeah. Yep.
Like, yep. That sounds like Toyota. Yeah. Honda and Toyota are two manufacturers that you cannot order those cars. You can't order them as a customer. The dealers can't order them. Now, what this dealer should have said is they should have explained that to her and said, we can put your name on a list. And by the way, there are X number of other people also on the list, and we get X number of these a month typically. Therefore, it will probably take around this time frame for you to get one. If you would like to be on the wait list, we'll take a deposit and then we'll call you just as soon as one comes in.
Now, I will clarify. I asked Toyota, and they said, yes, you can order a car. That's what they told me. That's what their communications team told me, that you can order a car. But what they said is the order has to fit into their production schedule. And so it may be a longer schedule. Say you want a specific color of blue and you want a very specific build, and they have to wait till they have so many cars getting all of it has to kind of fit into that part of the puzzle.
Right.
And once it does, then they can schedule the production of that model. But and it may take time. And they said also there's times where production is down on a specific model or it's ended. And so the build configurator on their site will still allow you to configure that car, but what their system will do is actually try to locate it for you as opposed to build it, which is a different thing. So let's talk about car makers that will take orders. Why is it that a car maker will take an order? And what does that look like? And what are those brands?
Yeah, absolutely. What Toyota is talking about there is that is not a true order system. That is what's called a preference system. And you can go to your dealer, and then the dealer can turn around and ask their Toyota rep, hey, I have a customer who wants this. Please, please, please build it whenever it is convenient for you. So that's not an order. An order is like with BMW or Mini, really any of your German brands. You can even do this with some of the American models. So I've ordered Fords, especially their commercial vehicles like the Transit van. I've ordered Sprinter vans. I've ordered, GMC Yukons. Those allow you to do a true order. BMW is probably the best because their entire manufacturing system is just in time. So every single car they build is a true spec order. Even the dealers have to place those orders to say, this is exactly what I want for my inventory. So that's great. You can truly go onto their website and build it the way that you want, and then negotiate with the dealer on the price, and then they will get it into the system. And then you will literally get hey, it will be built this week. And so you can expect it to be at the dealership around these dates, and then they can actually go into the system and check on the status. Sometimes you even get emails. We ordered a Porsche once, and they actually gave us a tracker that was on the container ship, so we could literally watch the car float across the Atlantic. That was
Well,
very
that
cool.
is wonderful if you're buying an expensive luxury car that
It is.
probably also has a lot of hand-built components and is, those cars, I've seen this with some other manufacturers as well. They put a lot of resources into how each component is built. And so it stands to reason you'd be able to watch it float across the ocean. But the larger scale, more popular vehicle brand manufacturing, when they build these cars and they deliver not orders, they deliver allocations to dealers. So talk about what allocation is and how that's different from ordering a car.
Absolutely. So the manufacturer is supplying the product to their dealers, which are their retail outlets. And so they're going to look at what types of cars are selling the best, what trim levels, even what colors are selling best in each area. And then they also look at how well that dealer has performed. And this is one of the reasons that the dealers really rush to make numbers at the end of the month, because if they sell so many cars and they meet their sales goals, then they get more allocations the next month. So they're constantly competing for that pool of products that come off the manufacturing line. But that allows the manufacturers to really understand what is selling well, where it's selling well, and which of their dealers are performing the best. But what that means for you as a car buyer is you're at the mercy of what is, my dealer or the dealers in my area, what are they getting? How many of them are they getting? And, when might they be getting them? And so you can't just order, you're at the mercy of what the manufacturer decides to build and then decides to send to which dealerships. And some dealerships get more allocations than others. Some of them get a little more preferential treatment to be able to get the allocations that they have asked for. And others are just at the mercy of whatever shows up on the truck that day.
Let me ask you this question. I have two questions to follow up on allocation. So I have heard, I'll take Honda, for example. Honda came out with a very hot sports car. And what I heard was that if they wanted, the dealers were told far in advance, a year in advance or something, that Honda was going to deliver this really hot sports car. It was going to be the darling of the enthusiasts and performance drivers, and it would have a pretty high price tag for a Honda. And so dealers were told, if you want this car if you want allocation of this car, and there's only so many to go around because they limit production of like 5,000 units or something. So if you want one of these, you have to sell this many other cars. If you want two of these, you have to sell this many other cars. Talk about what that looks like in the dealer world and what incentivizes them and how does that drive what the consumer sees?
Yeah, it can drive what the consumer sees in a variety of areas. Right now, Nissan's making a big change behind the scenes in terms of how they are rewarding their dealers for sales. And they're kind of going back to an old-fashioned just volume model that a lot of the dealers hate. But what that translates into for the customers is you may be able to get a better deal on the much less expensive car that you actually want, because the dealer will take a loss on certain number of cars in order to make the numbers so that they get the brownie points, the allocations, extra marketing dollars, all the things that go on behind the scenes there. They're trying to achieve whatever that goal is. And it means that they may be willing to take a bath on several deals just to move cars in order to achieve that larger goal. So it can work to your advantage as a car shopper, but it's hard to figure that out because you don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes and, which dealers are struggling, which ones are competing. That's just kind of all the behind the curtain stuff that the consumer doesn't see. But it doesn't mean you can't leverage it when you're negotiating.
If you have your eye on the Nissan Leaf, which by the way, the new Leaf is gorgeous and recommend if you're in the market for an EV. That might be one of those cars where the dealer says, look, I just got to move so many of them, so make me an offer.
Right.
Or whatever it is that they, maybe the current Rogue because it's about to get redesigned, although it's a pretty hot car. So that's good to know. My next question though is, so you don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes and what the story is with their allocation and what's motivating the dealer. So what questions should I be asking when I'm talking with them about a particular car and availability of the model that I want? Say maybe they don't have it on the lot, or maybe they do have a bunch of cars on the lot that are what I want and I'd like a better price. What kind of questions should I be asking?
Yeah, absolutely. And you should do your homework even before you set foot on the lot and see, what is out there. So look at multiple dealer websites, see what's in inventory. Keep in mind, that's not always accurate, but it can give you an idea if something is out there. And then you can start calling around. And when you're looking for a very specific vehicle that may be hard to find, you definitely want to ask the same questions to multiple dealers to see if you're getting similar answers. And that's kind of how you use your BS detector with them. But definitely ask if they tell you, they don't have one, but, oh, you can order one. First question you need to ask is it a true order? Or is this an allocation request and you're just going to put me on a wait list and hope you get one eventually? And then you can kind of find out, what is it truly? And then if it is a wait list situation, especially if it's a Honda or a Toyota, ask how many people are currently on your wait list for this make and model and trim level. And then that'll give you an idea about how long the wait is. So for example, I just a couple months ago placed what's called a pre-order for the new Subaru Crosstrek hybrid that is coming out later this month. So excited. And this is a brand new car that they haven't had. And so they were taking true pre-orders. So what Subaru said was, hey, if you got customers that want these, give us the specs on what they want. And then that is what we will build. So we're actually going to get them. But I had to ask the dealers, I'm like, okay, so how many allocations, how many production slots do you have? And how many people are you already on the list that you've placed orders for? So how long do we think it's going to take to get? And I called around to multiple dealers until I found one that was a higher volume store that said, yeah, hey, we've got, we're getting this many allocations, in the first 2 production runs, and this many people are on the list. So, if we place the order today, we should be able to get it within, the first month of deliveries. So we expect, late November, somewhere before the end of the year. Great. We were able to do that. And they're being very cool about it in that it was a refundable deposit that we put down.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
That was my next question. If I really wanted that Subaru Crosstrek, or let's actually go back to that Toyota request, should my friend have gone to like 5 different Toyota dealers and put down a deposit at each one?
No.
No.
No, I never think that's a good idea because you're just tying up your money. When it's a situation where you don't really know when you're going to get one, that's when you ask those questions about how many allocations a month are you getting, is this particular dealership getting for these cars? And how many people are on the list currently? And that'll give you an idea of what the wait might be. And then you can put a deposit down with the dealer that looks like it's going to be able to get it to you the fastest, balanced, of course, with the dealer that's given you the best customer experience and, hasn't been blowing smoke in your face about the process. So, but when it's a true allocation situation, I'm hesitant to give a deposit unless the car is already in their production pipeline and it's in their allocations. They know they're getting it, and you can literally put your name on that VIN number and that car is yours. But I don't like putting a deposit down when it's we might get one sometime in the next year.
And that's, I think, what happened. And they did not have a VIN number. And they said, the salesman kept saying, well, I think we're getting one. We should be getting one. And honestly, I've heard that before from dealers. Yeah, we're supposed to be getting one. And if it shows up, it'll be yours. And then the truck comes and there's none on there. Right. And so so that to me sounds like a little bit of untruth that they're just, you
Yeah,
know,
it
they're
is.
trying
And
to make you hold on until their luck turns and they get the car you want. And then if they have somebody who marches in and says, I don't care, I'll pay a premium, I just need the car, then that car that maybe that salesman had pinpointed for you gets sold to this other person, which I have a question about that too, because that's something else that another person that I've talked to has had an issue with. So they,
yeah,
like, how do you? So you want the VIN number? You want to be able to pinpoint it to the VIN number.
ideally, yes, because they get allocations. Usually they can see out 60, sometimes 90 days. Toyota's usually 60 days. And so, they know what they're getting because those cars have been allocated to them. They are starting production. And then it's a concrete thing that you are putting a deposit on as opposed to putting a deposit down on a hope and a prayer. And then the reason that you will get, and one of my clients termed bullshittery from the salespeople, is that they are competing not just with each other at that dealership, but they're also, all the dealers are competing with each other. They know that if they don't get your deposit and hold on to your money and hold your money hostage, you might go to another dealer and have better luck and find one, which
Right.
is what you should be doing. So
So
yeah, they're gonna feed you a line of bull to try and hold on to you as a customer because they're trying to make a sale eventually.
So with the woman who was trying to buy the Toyota and kept calling every month, it was a year
Yeah.
from the time that she put down a deposit till she finally walked away, got her deposit back and walked away and bought something else.
Right.
How long is it reasonable to expect to wait for a car from allocation?
That is a question you want to ask up front. And this is why I talk with the sales managers, not necessarily the sales people, because one of the sales people don't always have this information. Or if you have to go through them, say, go to your manager, ask this question, get back to me. But hopefully they will be honest with you. I obviously have a little bit of a different relationship, but it depends on the car. We have waited, especially this happened all the time during the pandemic, but if it's a hot car, we were waiting. Another situation, and where a lot of this is coming to play with Toyota, they have had more supply chain issues. They have had more chip issues than anybody else. So she probably wasn't being completely BS, but she wasn't being told the whole truth either. But the Grand Highlanders, especially the Grand Highlander hybrid, everybody was so excited about that. People wanted them. And then they had a problem with the way the airbag deployed, and they had to do a stop sale for 6 months. So everybody wanted one. You called around, nobody could get one. And, people like, oh, it's going to be a year before you get it. It's going to be a year before you get it. Then it's up to you. You have to decide, are you willing to wait that long, or do you need to consider another brand for now? And then, hey, maybe in 2 or 3 years, I can go back and get this one that I want. But a lot of it is about shopping around. I had a client who the Grand Highlander hybrid was literally the perfect car for her. And, all the dealers were saying, oh, you'll not get one. You'll not get one. She was even friends with a guy who owned a dealership up in Pennsylvania. He's like, you're not going to get one. I can't get one. I can't even get one for me. Well, I found one that was in the production pipeline for a smaller Toyota dealership in Gastonia, North Carolina. And we waited 5 weeks and it showed up and we got it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I think so. That's good to know, to ask that very specific question. Honestly, when I first started talking with her, and she was at the point of tears because she was pregnant, and she really needed to get rid of her car and get a new car. And so I'll tell you how the story resolved. She needed something right away. So I told her to go drive. Here are your options that are similar to the Highlander hybrid, and just go drive the current model either at the dealer or just go to CarMax and drive the last model year. They're the same. And just make sure you like the setup of the space and how it feels and the drive feel and all that. And then we'll find it. So she went and drove the Highlander and the Kia Sorento back to back, and came back and said, I love the Sorrento. That's the one I want. And she could not find a dealer. Now, she wanted a hybrid, and in Texas, she couldn't find a dealer that would that had it in allocation. They said, and they refused to order it, by the way, which also Kia, I asked their team and they said, no, they can order it, but they just don't want to.
Mhm.
And so she ended up ordering it, finding it on, I think, cars.com and ordering it from a dealer in Rochester, New York, who shipped it to her.
Yep, exactly.
So if
I have done that
lesson
many
is,
times.
if you want it and it exists, you can get it. And that is the same thing with that pair of boots you've been eyeing. It's the same thing with that, a thing that you want, the tile that you want for your kitchen. Your car is no different. So I want to ask you one last question about ordering and allocation. And this goes back to, so I want to say it does go back a couple of years to the Ford Bronco. And a friend of mine ordered a Ford Bronco. And what I want to know is, what do you do and how do you call them out on this? How do you know this is happening to you? She put in an order and she was lucky in that she got I guess she got one of the last ones with a hard top, because they stopped making them for a while. They're making them again now, but they stopped making them for a while. And so she got her order was for a hard top. She believes the car actually came in several times and the dealer sold it before telling her. She thinks at least twice. The dealer sold the car before letting her know that her car was there and telling her, no, sorry, it hasn't come in yet. And because she saw it in their inventory.
Ooh.
Yeah. So, and then when she finally got her car, it was not spec'd the way she anticipated it was. It didn't have some technology and some features that she thought it would have. And she wasn't really sure whether or not she did the order process pretty quickly because it was such a hot item at the time. So she wasn't sure if she actually did it right. But what do you do when you've ordered something and you're watching the dealer, because you're sitting there every day hoping it comes in, right? And you think you see it show up in their inventory and then they don't call you and then it disappears. What do you do?
You get really mad and you report them to your state's attorney general.
Really?
But that's hard, because that's just a sign of a dishonest dealer. And this is why it's really important to get a VIN number as soon as you can. You typically won't get it until it either goes into production or sometimes even until it comes off the production line. But it's critical to know if you have a specific VIN number and to continue to follow up. What may have happened was another salesperson sold it out from under this salesperson. There may have been the Hunger Games going on behind the scenes at that dealership. And I know a lot of that did happen with the Broncos. That's really hard to control because we as consumers don't have direct visibility into the manufacturer's production system. And, we don't get a tracking number like we do with FedEx or Amazon to be able to track exactly where it is. But I would have probably had a conversation with the general manager of the dealership to find out what the heck is going on, because he or she may not know that there was infighting going on. And, then all you can really do is complain to your state boards, your attorney general, and, feel free to go to the media and be like, hey, what's going on here? They might do a story. But it's very frustrating when that kind of bullshittery goes on.
And does Ford care about that? Or can they do anything?
They probably care because it's bad for their brand. Whether they'll actually do anything or not depends, because there is a very delicate relationship between the franchisor, which is the manufacturer, and the franchisee and their contracts, and how much control the manufacturer can actually exert. So, for example, during the pandemic, most cars were selling for over MSRP because of the supply and demand. Subaru corporate said, we are not allowing that. That is a car dealership thing. We are not car dealers. We are Subaru retailers. Any dealer that's caught doing that will lose their allocations. They'll lose their marketing dollars. They'll get in big trouble, basically, because Subaru couldn't tell them directly, you're not allowed to do that, but they could make it very financially painful if they did. And they actually created a system where the dealers could tell on each other. And I got several Subaru dealers in big trouble for that.
Because,
but they
people
cared, and they put a system in place to try and prevent that from happening, even though they couldn't control it directly.
Right.
So
people who have bad habits and and unethical work practices will, be true to that.
Greed will often win out, unfortunately. So that's why it's so important to also have a good relationship and really, take your time to shop around so that you know who's going to treat you right and who's not.
Well, and that sets up my next set of questions. I would love to know what to do when you're told you can't order that. I would like to know more about how dealer trades work and more insight into the system. But that is another question for the next podcast.
Part 2.
The straight shift. So we're going to end here, but check out the link below for the straight shift on LeeAnn Shattuck's podcast. That is LeeAnn Shattuck's podcast. And that's where we will answer the rest of our questions on how to order a car, especially in a world where they tell you that's not possible, because anything is possible, right, LeeAnn?
Anything is possible if you are crazy enough or have enough money to throw at it.
And if you know what you're doing.
And if you know what you're doing.
If you know what you're doing and you have good advice, you can have the car. All right. Thank you so much for being with us today, LeeAnn. It's so good to see you again. And we'll see you over on the straight shift.
Sounds great, Scotty. Take care.
All right. Well, there are a lot of crazy workarounds here, but it's possible to find your dream car. We have to work it a little bit.
No, it is amazing. And LeeAnn has so much more to share on how you can actually get that dream car. And when we say dream car, often she means like, a Honda Odyssey that is a certain trim level, or maybe an SUV that is mostly sold in front-wheel drive in that market, and it's hard to find an all-wheel drive. So, not always like that perfect convertible Mercedes-Benz. That's what I think of as a dream car, but often it's just that car that somebody needs. And that's what she's so good at. So she's going to share a lot more with us next week on her podcast. Be sure to click the link below, subscribe to LeeAnn's podcast. Of course, subscribe to our podcast right here. You will find all of our podcasts over at A Girl's Guide to Cars. Just click the podcast tab. We are available on any podcast platform that you might subscribe to. And before we go, Natalie, I have to ask you a question. So what is your dream car? If you were looking for a needle in a haystack, what would you be looking for?
Ooh, Corvette Stingray.
Corvette Stingray. A new one or a vintage one?
I wouldn't be opposed to either one.
I think I see you more in the new mid-engine one versus the vintage. I feel like the new design is so beautiful.
I love that center console. They change it up a bit. I'm a fan.
Yeah. I would say for me, I don't know. We reviewed the Range Rover extended long wheelbase not that long ago.
Ooh.
And at first I really didn't like the car because it takes some figuring out. It's not completely intuitive. But once I got in sync with that car, it was pretty amazing. And I was like, oh wow, and I think I would go for the plug-in hybrid so you can drive an all electric and drive quietly. Because I really love an electric car. That's my thing. That's my thing, is the electric car. But I loved the interior of that car. I really loved all the things that it did so intuitively. So I think that might be and to find a plug-in hybrid of any car, it really is a needle in a haystack because they don't sell them in every market. So you often have to weed through and find a dealer that has that one car available for you. But I don't want to give any more away from LeeAnn's podcast. I'm going to read us out. So be sure to subscribe to us here. All the details are below. There is also a link to our story on how to buy the car that you want, even when the dealer says that you can't. And we will be back in a week with another podcast from A Girl's Guide to Cars, What Drives Her. Thank you to my co-host, Natalie Merola. I'm Scotty Reiss. Our editor is Steph Howard. Our music is by Embado Elements. And we'll see you back here again next time for What Drives Her. Thanks, everybody.